Yo, what's up guys? Alf here, and today I'm going to be doing an updated version of the Mono Green Titan list that I've been doing a lot of work on recently. Both looking at new cards that I've added from Murders at Karlov Manor, and also looking at how this particular list has adapted to recent changes in the metagame, mainly the emergence of the show and tell decks that are obviously everywhere right now. So, as you can see from the screenshot here, I'm currently 11-1 with this new version of the deck, which is obviously a very small sample size, but the show and tell matchup has actually felt very good to me so far, and just generally the list has felt really good as well, so I just wanted to get this video out there. Speaking of which, sorry for the delay in getting videos out over the past couple of weeks. I did have a bunch of set reviews planned before the set came out, but unfortunately I got ill just before and completely lost my voice. But I've been playing a ton with the new set across different formats since it came out. Got a ton of different lists in the works, stuff like show and tell, stuff like new convoke lists as well. So got a bunch of lists that I'm working on and pretty close to good versions as well. So I should have a bunch of videos coming out over the next few weeks covering decks with new cards. But anyway, let's just get straight into it looking at this Titan list here. So I'm not going to go over how the entire list works because I've already got a bunch of videos out on this. If you don't know how this deck works, I'm going to leave a link down to my full deck guide video about this, going over how the whole deck works and all the individual card choices and everything like that. But in a very general sense, the whole idea of this deck is you're very much built around Primeval Titan, getting it into play on turn 3 or 4 as consistently as possible, and then just overwhelming the opponent with Field of the Dead. So the main change I've made to the list is Archdruid's Charm. So this is definitely the biggest card that we got from Murders at Karlov Manor. This is definitely the card I was most hyped for in Titan, and it's definitely felt like it's lived up to the hype to me so far. So this is basically a 5-modal charm, which is really flexible for 3 mana. So you can either search a creature to your hand, which is basically going to be Primeval Titan the majority of the time. You can search to put a land on the battlefield tapped. You can put a counter on a creature, and then that creature deals damage to an opposing creature. You can exile an artifact or exile an enchantment. So the card I've cut to make room for this is Fierce Empath, just because Archdruid's Charm basically fills the same role that Empath did, but has a ton of extra modal abilities as well. Now, the one upside of Empath over Archdruid's Charm is Empath would both tutor the Primeval Titan and provide a body on the battlefield to be able to natural order, but that's a very corner case scenario. There are very few situations where you needed both of those, and the extra flexibility that you get off Archdruid's Charm just completely eclipses the Empath. I think it's just a much better card overall. So like I said, first mode, being able to tutor a creature, is basically just doing what Empath did, being able to tutor Primeval Titan. It being instant speed is pretty nice, especially against the counter spell decks. Being able to hold open mana and then tutor for the Primeval Titan at the end of the opponent's turn is pretty huge. But one other really big application of this mode is being able to tutor Titan of Industry against the show and tell decks. That is an absolutely game-winning play. So if you are against show and tell, even if you're on the draw, you can obviously get to 3 mana off an Arboreal Grazer or a Cami of Bamboo Groves, and being able to hold open the Archdruid's Charm and then cast the charm in response to show and tell, tutor the Titan of Industry, and then if the opponent puts an Omniscience in play, you just get to put Titan of Industry in play, blow up the Omniscience straight away and create a 4/4, which oftentimes is just going to win you the game on the spot. And even if they put an Attractor in play instead of the Omniscience, you've obviously got a 7/7 reach blocker that you can put a shield counter on as well, so that can just eat the Attractor in combat. So Archdruid's Charm not only really improves your consistency with Primeval Titan, but it gives you a really solid main deck way of beating show and tell by being able to shoot a Titan of Industry, which is absolutely huge. This interaction is going to be very big in that matchup going forwards. Then the other mode, being able to search a land onto the battlefield, very nice as well. Kind of gives you redundancy for Sylvan Scrying, but actually ramps you as well. So I think this is probably the biggest flaw on the card, because I think this is, for 3 mana, the most efficient way that you've got in the entire history of Magic of being able to put any land on the battlefield, especially at instant speed as well. And the main applications that we've got of this, being able to put Bojuka Bog into play at instant speed, as you know, instant speed Graveyard Hate is going to be very relevant against a number of decks, you know, especially stuff like Breach, which is pretty nice. Although you can obviously exile the Breach itself with the exile enchantment mode if that's slightly better in situations like that. Obviously, you know, the main reason that we're running tutor effects like Sylvan Scrying and Archdruid's Charm is to assemble Sunken Citadel plus Castle Garenbrig, but even if you don't have Sunken Citadel, being able to tutor Castle Garenbrig and put it into play is very big as well, because then you can get your 5th land into play on turn 4, and with Castle Garenbrig you can obviously cast Primeval Titan off 5 lands, which is just, you know, if you've got Primeval Titan in hand, Archdruid's Charm is another way that you can accelerate into it, even if you don't have the Sunken Citadel, which is pretty huge. Being able to put Colony Garden into play at instant speed allows you to untap and go for natural order, which is obviously a very powerful sequence as well. And obviously being able to choose stuff like Cavern of Souls, Blast Zone, putting Field of Dead in play and ramping gets Field of Dead online quicker as well. So I think the mode of putting a land onto the battlefield at instant speed is definitely the flaw of this card, and this particular mode is very useful and very flexible as well, which is pretty nice. then the ability to take out opposing creatures is also a very big deal as well, because in previous versions of the deck, you were basically just really cold and had no way to deal with stuff like Elesh Norn, Strict Proctor, Meddling Mage, these main deck creatures that really help the opponent because they just shut off a bunch of your deck. Having this as just a way to take out opposing creatures is very big as well. The fact that you turn your creature into a 7/7 means that you can take out opposing Atraxes, which is obviously, Atraxa is a card that is seeing a lot of play right now in both natural order decks like Yawgmoth, Sultai natural order, as well as show and tell decks are also playing it as well. So having this as a way to take out Atraxa and opposing Primeval Titans is very, very big as well. And then also being able to take out artifacts and enchantments is pretty huge. Now artifacts don't see a ton of play. Notably, this can exile the One Ring, which obviously the One Ring isn't the most commonly played card in the format, but having a main deck out to the One Ring is very nice off this as well. But the ability to exile an enchantment also gives you another main deck out to Blood Moon, which is very important as well. Now obviously you would have to have this, you'd have to either have all three of your basics, which is kind of unlikely, or you would have to just float your mana, so you'd have to be holding your 3 mana up for this to be an efficient answer to Blood Moon. But again, more main deck answers to Blood Moon is always going to be very good. Now the main changes that I've had to make to this deck to adapt to this, obviously we've cut the Empath, which then means that we also cut Stormkeld Vanguard and Generous Scent, because I don't think there's any real need for those, because Archdruid's Charm itself can deal with artifacts and enchantments, so there's never a situation where you would use the charm to search for a Generous Scent when you can just tutor a basic onto the battlefield with the second ability. Or there's no reason that you would tutor for Stormkeld Vanguard when you can just use the Archdruid Charm itself to take out Blood Moon or whatever artifact and enchantment is there. So that's freed up 2 more spaces, which I've dedicated to extra lands that I'm going to talk about when I move to the mana base. Now, there is a slight downside in terms of deck building for Archmage's Charm, and that's the triple green casting cost. So in order to cast this consistently, I did feel like I needed to go up to 23 green sources in the mana base. So I have had to tweak it slightly, but I've only lost 1 utility land compared to the previous version, so it's definitely felt worth it to me. So in terms of the changes I've made to the mana base in order to enable Archdruid's Charm, first card I've added is Lair of the Hydra. Now, this is a card that I wanted to add to the deck for quite a while, but every other land felt more important. Now that we need more green sources, I think Lair of the Hydra is just the best utility land to add, because it's an early untapped green source, which is obviously great for our turn 1 Grazer and Kami. It's a good way to apply pressure. I have found myself in multiple situations where I've tutored Lair of the Hydra off Primeval Titan if I need to apply pressure and I'm empty-handed, because then the following turn you can just fire up Lair of the Hydra as another big attacker to apply pressure. And then additionally, it's another very nice card alongside Natural Order, because once you have a bit of excess mana, you can fire up Lair of the Hydra for X equals 1 and then just sack it to Natural Order, and the opponent doesn't get an opportunity to kill it with instant speed removal as well, as opposed to something like a Colony Garden. So Lair of the Hydra, really nice green utility land, so very happy to add that. I've added a second Snow-Covered Forest to the list as well, which obviously I'm never too keen to run multiples of lands, because it can delay your ability to get Field of Dead online, especially when we're already running 4 Sunken Citadel, 4 Castle Garenbrig and 3 Field of the Dead. But first of all, I felt like I wanted to replace the Generous Scent with an additional basic. I am very cognizant that I want to have a lot of ways to access basic lands in this deck in order to play around Blood Moon more efficiently. Additionally, I am running an additional land in the list. Obviously, if we count replacing Generous Scent with an additional land, then that's kind of even there, but we're also replacing Stormkeld Vanguard with another land, so in essence, because we're doing that, it doesn't really slow our ability to get Field of Dead online there. And I also like running 3 basics in the deck because of Archdruid's Charm, because now we can tutor all 3 basics on the battlefield of something like a Primeval Titan or a Sylvan Scrying or an Archdruid's Charm against the Blood Moon deck, and then if we have all 3 basics in play, Archdruid's Charm off the top is a way that we can answer Blood Moon. And just in general, it's good to have more basics in the deck as a hedge against Blood Moon, if that makes sense. So I'm definitely happy adding it, and the reason I've gone for a Snow-Covered Forest over a regular forest is because if you channel the Kami of Bamboo Groves, you get regular forests. So I wanted to add Snow-Covered Forest because then, if we have a Snow-Covered and then we channel the Kami, they're different names for Field of Dead, if that makes sense. Then another new card from Murders at Call of Mana that I really like, just in general, this whole cycle of lands has impressed me a lot in Timeless. I've been running, 1 or 2 copies of this in most decks with fetch lands, and Lush Portico is a really nice addition here. It's basically a fetchable tapped dual land that surveils 1 on ETB, which is very nice if, especially against discard spells, if the opponent takes away something like a Primeval Titan or a Natural Order, being able to fetch the Lush Portico and just try and dig towards Morghast off the top of your library to try and top deck a Primeval Titan or Natural Order, or even something like an Archdruid's Charm is really big. So this is a really great addition, especially when the deck needed more green sources And then the only change I've made, or the only cut I've made to the mana base in order to make room for these new cards is Radiant Fountain. So I did feel like I needed to cut a non-green utility land in order to fit the green utility lands in. And for me, that choice was between Radiant Fountain and Blast Zone. But out of the two, I do feel like Blast Zone, there are situations and matchups where Blast Zone is really, really important, specifically against stuff like Death Shadow. Now, having said that, Death Shadow hasn't been that important, and Blast Zone hasn't been that impactful in the games I've played so far either. So if you're facing a lot of burn or just generally burn spells in general, like Domain Zoo for example, then you could definitely look at running Radiant Fountain instead of the Blast Zone. But I feel like Blast Zone is such a uniquely powerful effect, and we do have access to a lot of incidental life gain off other cards like Westvale Abbey and Titan of Industry, that I felt like Blast Zone was more important because it gives you access to an effect that we don't have access to elsewhere in the deck, if that makes sense. Now, another card I want to talk about in conjunction with Archdruid's Charm is Sylvan Scrying, because Archdruid's Charm does do kind of what both Fierce Empath and Sylvan Scrying does in one card. So I was thinking maybe we don't need Sylvan Scrying because Charm does both jobs, so maybe we could look at running something else instead. But most of the other options I was thinking of were 3 or more mana, and I'm really not a big fan of not running anything else below 3 mana outside of Grazer, Kami, and Once Upon a Time. You know, I've seen quite a few other lists that just run Grazer, Kami, Once Upon a Time as your 1 and 2 drops, and I'm not a really big fan of that because it just makes the list so much more vulnerable to discard spells. Because, you know, say you keep a hand with Kami or Grazer, and the opponent just thought seizes away your turn 1 play, you have nothing to do before turn 3 at that point. And so I really feel like I want this slot to be something that's 1 or 2 mana so that you don't just get blown out by early discard spells. And I definitely feel just like Sylvan Scrying is the best card to be running at the 1 or 2 drop slot. The main problem with this card is that the deck, it generally makes the deck a lot weaker to Ashiok Dreamrender's passive ability, because the passive shuts off Scrying, the search abilities on Archdruid's Charm, Natural Order, and Primeval Titan. But the only other card I was really considering in this slot is Explore, and I just think that Sylvan Scrying provides so much more extra utility. It enables the turn 3 or 4 Primeval Titan very consistently because of Sunken Citadel plus Castle Garenbrig, but it also just enables you to tutor any of the other lands, especially Visager against the Blood Moon deck. So I still feel like Sylvan Scrying is the best option in this slot, even though it does make you still weak to Ashiok Dreamrender. But like I said, I don't want to be running expensive cards because I just feel like it makes you so soft to discard spells and even counter spells. You know, if you are on the draw and the opponent has like a Stern Scolding for your turn 1 ramp, or you keep a hand without the turn 1 ramp, I just feel like you really need to be doing stuff in the first 2 turns of the game. And if you replace Sylvan Scrying with something like a Karn or an Elvish Rejuvenator, I just feel like your curve is very easily disrupted by discard spells, basically. So I still prefer Sylvan Scrying in this slot, even though you are kind of soft to Ashiok Dreamrender. But like I said, we've still got to get lost in the sideboard. Speaking of which, sideboard is the other place that I want to talk about, because that's where we've had the main changes. Now, the biggest new change to the sideboard is 4 copies of Reclamation Sage. So the main reason for this, well, there's 2 main reasons. First of all is Show and Tell. So obviously Show and Tell is everywhere right now. Everyone's pretty hyped about the deck. I think it is very, very powerful. I think it is one of the best decks in the format. Now, having said that, the set's only been out for a couple of days, so you know, you have to give the metagame time to shift. There is a decent amount of counterplay, but the deck is incredibly powerful, and the play patterns are pretty ridiculous. It kind of reminds me of the Discover deck in a lot of ways, where you can just win the game with, you know, basically no board presence out of nowhere. And I definitely think the best way to counteract that deck from the Titan side is to run creatures with ETBs that can just blow up Omniscience. So obviously, you know, as I talked about, being able to shoot a Titan of Industry off Archdruid's Charm is the best way to beat Show and Tell game 1. Then post sideboard, I just feel like I really want to increase my chances of being able to do that, and Reclamation Sage feels like the perfect card because it basically does the same thing as Titan of Industry does. You know, if they have Show and Tell and you've got this in your hand, they put an Omniscience into play, you can just put a Rec Sage into play and immediately blow it up, and oftentimes that will just win you the game, right? That's their main way of comboing off. Now obviously Reclamation Sage doesn't do anywhere near the same job as Titan of Industry does if the opponent has an Atraxa. But if the opponent has an Atraxa, you often have time to play through that. You know, you've got stuff like Primeval Titan that you can then tutor Westvale Abbey to transform and then, you know, stonewall the Atraxa. It buys you time to search Titan of Industry, because once they have the Atraxa in play, they're going to be trying to set up Show and Tell plus Omniscience, and then when they go for the second Show and Tell, you can then hopefully have another Reclamation Sage or a Titan of Industry ready to blow up the Omniscience. You've got Archdruid's Charm that you can use to kill the Atraxa if you have a Primeval Titan into play. And the main reason that I'm choosing to run Reclamation Sage in the sideboard over extra copies of Titan of Industry is because Reclamation Sage has utility in other matchups as well. Obviously, in previous builds of the deck, I've run stuff like Frankel Trillback and Haywire Might, and Reclamation Sage fills that role very well, right? You can blow up Blood Moon off just having one basic in play. So Reclamation Sage just feels a perfect addition to the sideboard because it can take out Blood Moon, which is something that I've dedicated slots for in the past. And this is, very similar in terms of power level to stuff like Haywire Might and Tranquil Throwback, but having this ETB just means it's excellent in the Show and Tell mirror. And I really like running 4 copies at the moment just because Show and Tell is absolutely everywhere right now. So post sideboard, we have Archdruid's Charm, Titan of Industry, and Reclamation Sage. So we have 9 outs to Show and Tell, which is just really solid. The only real counteraction they've got to this is if they've got stuff like Blue Leyliner, Born Upon a Wind, which, isn't seeing that much play right now, and they have to have it as well, right? There are going to be certain situations where they don't have that, and if the opponent is playing Leyline of Anticipation, we're running for Reclamation Sage. So, if you draw 2 of these, you can Rec Sage their Blue Leyline on turn 2 a lot of the time, off a turn 1 Grazer or Kami, and then if you've got a second one in hand, or we've got an Archdruid's Charm, we can then blow up their Omniscience when they put it into play as well. So I feel like this is a really solid way to counteract the Show and Tell decks, and then, we are very good at applying pressure once it gets to turn 3 or 4 afterwards anyway, and then the opponent would obviously have to rebuild, find another Show and Tell and Omniscience to be able to combo off. So Rec Sage feels like a brilliant addition to the sideboard in the current metagame. In terms of the other cards, very similar to my last build, but I do like how the sideboard is set up right now. We've got Veil of Summer, which is very good against the counterspell decks, and also the Tendrils of Agony Storm decks, mainly Beseech, because against Breach I prefer to have Weathered Runestone, but against any other non-Breach Tendrils of Agony deck, Veil of Summer is a really good way to just blow out the opponent there. So Veil, very good against Storm combos and Control. Weathered Runestone, still think this card is really, really important because it just completely flips the Yawgmoth matchup on its head. Yawgmoth is one of your worst matchups game 1, and Weathered Runestone shuts off Chord of Calling, the Yawgmoth combo itself, and opposing natural orders. Obviously, when you bring this in, you have to board out your own natural orders, but that's absolutely worth it in matchups like Breach or Yawgmoth, where this card is very, very good. And again, if you didn't see my previous video, the reason that I'm running Weathered Runestone over Grafdigger's Cage is specifically because against Breach, they very commonly run Molten Collapse, which can just answer Grafdigger's Cage, whereas Weathered Runestone being 2 mana means that it shuts up. Well, it can't be killed by Molten Collapse, which is pretty big. And then Get Lost, I have moved down to 3 copies of this, mainly to fit in the 4 copies of Rec Sage, but Get Lost, does a similar role to Rec Sage in that it can kill Blood Moon, but it can also take out all of the other commonly played hate cards like Creatures, Elesh Norn, Strict Proctor, Meddling Mage, stuff like that. Obviously, that's slightly less important now. We've got Archdruid's Charm because that's an out to those as well. Can also take out stuff like Virulent Plague, but the main reason I'm running Get Lost is because of Ashiok Dream Render. As I've mentioned a few times, Ashiok is good, particularly against this build of the deck because I'm running Sylvan Scrying. So I do feel like I still need the 3 copies of Get Lost. Now, moving forwards, I do want to try and find the 4th copy of Get Lost in the sideboard, find room for it if I can, but right now with Show and Tell everywhere, I feel like it's absolutely worth running the 4 copies of Rec Sage because maximizing your chances of having a Rec Sage or, a Charm or a Titan in hand is super important because they can very consistently go off on turn 3 or sometimes even turn 2 with the Show and Tell. So while I would like to find the room for the 4th copy of Get Lost, I feel like everything else is more important, especially, against Control. I've cut the Carnage Tyrant, so I still want to run the full 4 copies of Veil of Summer, and especially against the Beseech decks, finding Veil of Summer is super important because having this card in your hand is basically the difference between winning and losing in that matchup because they can race you way quicker. And then similarly, Weathered Runestone is just the card. You really want to maximize your chances of finding the first copy of this against Yawgmoth, and finding this in multiples is also pretty good because it buys you insurance against stuff like Breach as well. So I really like how this side will be set up. As I said, if I had a 16th card, I would definitely dedicate it to the 4th copy of Get Lost, but overall I still really like this deck. I still like how it's positioned. I do feel with the Rec Sage, Archdruid's Charm editions, you have really good game against the Show and Tell decks. With this current configuration, the matchups I'm most scared of are Mono Black Devotion. Elliot Dragon's List is still very strong against you. You do have Get Lost as an answer to Ashiok, but Necropotence is a hell of a card. Speaking of which, the card I'm kind of foregoing in the sideboard in order to fit all this in is Pithing Needle, and because I'm not running Pithing Needle, the other matchup I'm very scared of with this particular build of deck is Belcher. I think Belcher and Mono Black Devotion are the 2 tricky matchups, but everything else I feel like I've got good game for, right? As I've explained with the sideboard cards, we got good stuff against Control and Storm, stuff against, Blood Moon, stuff against Ashiok. answers for Yawgmoth and Breach. So I feel like the deck has good game against everything that isn't Belcher or Money Black Devotion. And if those two decks do suddenly become more popular, you could try and find room in the sideboard for Pithing Needles. So I like where this particular build is positioned, even though combo is seeing a resurgence because of the show and tell decks. Rex Sage gives you good answers to it, basically. So that's the new version of the deck. Next up, I've got some gameplay. Just got some matches that I was playing on the ladder so you guys can see it in action. If you got any questions about this at all, definitely let me know in the comments, and I hope you enjoy the gameplay. Big up. Okay, so we're going first here. And yeah, this hand looks good, but we need to try and find an untapped green source off this once upon a time if we can, because we've already got Citadel, Gambring, and Titan. Okay, perfect. Found the snow-covered forest. That's great. So now we can go graze it into Sunken Citadel, and then as long as we can find another land in the next two draws, then we potentially got a turn 3 Titan here, which, you know, obviously on the play is just the nut start. It's exactly what I want to see. And this is kind of another reason why I'm glad to go up on lands slightly compared to previous versions, just to, you know, really maximize your chances of getting good value off the early grazes and camis, and then, you know, you're very confident of being able to draw lands off the top. Okay, Windswept Heath is pretty nice. Could crack it now just to try and play around Stifle, but, you know, I very much doubt they're playing that, especially because not many Stifle decks are black, although they are playing blue. So, going to crack here, and I think it's between Gate to Manabon and Lush Portico. Since the opponent could be on a counterspell deck, I'm kind of, you know, Lush Portico, we're not really digging for anything in particular, and Gate to Manabon, you know, my concern here, if we are against a very counterspell heavy deck, is that they could just counter the two Primeval Titans, and then Gate to Manabon is good as a follow-up to look for stuff, but, you know, they'd need to have memory lapse or change the equation here. So maybe we're supposed to Lush Portico. Yeah, maybe I'm supposed to make the read right now that they could also be on show and tell. So maybe I'm supposed to use the Portico to try and dig towards like a Titan of Industry or Archdruid's Charm or something like that. So we're definitely going to get a Field of the Dead, and I think the card that I should be getting here is Colony Garden because we just drew the natural order. Having said that, I could also see an argument for going for something like a Westvale Abbey instead, but since we also got Craterhoof in hand, they are on show and tell. Okay, so this could just be game over here then. We do get to put another Primeval Titan into play, so, and they do have the Omniscience. I was going to say, if they have the Atraxa, we just win with the Craterhoof next turn, but they have the Omniscience, so I think we've just got to hope that they fizzle here somehow. So definitely get the Westvale Abbey and another Field of the Dead here, just as, you know, a way to, if we do get a bunch of, you know, say we draw a fetch land, we can put, you know, 6 tokens in play, and then we can just sack them to get, you know, Westvale Abbey, but chances are we could just be dead here. If they had the Attraction instead, I think we've actually got a decent chance of winning from this spot because we can just untap and go for the Craterhoof. Okay, I mean, with Omniscience, I think we just lose to the Atraxa, so I think we've just got to put one Atraxa in the face down pile because I think we can potentially beat Counterspell, Drown in the Lock, but I don't think we can beat Atraxa, or it's very unlikely, right? Because they're almost assuredly going to be able to just dig for whatever they need off the Atraxa to be able to combo off. Wow, okay, same situation again. I think we just have to put the Atraxa in the face down pile. I mean, from what we've seen, they could just be running a controlling version without a way to go infinite, in which case we might just be able to beat this board state. Okay, they go for the Atraxa. Hopefully we don't see like a Fae of Wishes or Mastermind's Acquisition. Okay, wow, it looks like they're just on a controlling version of the deck, which is good for us because that we might actually be able to just beat them with what we've got here. I mean, having said that, we do have to play through, you know, 2 counter spells and a Drown in the Lock. So, I mean, I'm not going to jam the Craterhoof into a counter spell here. I think I'm just going to attack with everything and then transform the Westvale Abbey as a way to just stop them from attacking with the Atraxa here. And also, you know, if we sack whatever they block with the Atraxa, we also deny them 7 life, which is pretty relevant here. So, off this first one, definitely get the last Field of the Dead, and then what else do we want to get here? Probably going to get a Lair of the Hydra in case that matters for next turn, which, you know, in this sort of situation, I could see an extra attacker like that mattering. And then off the second trigger, I think I'm going to get a Bajuka Bog just in case they're running some way to reuse their graveyard somehow. You know, if they're running, I don't know, like a Breach or something. Well, I mean, they're probably not with Omniscience, but, you know, I feel like the rest of the lands aren't really providing too much utility. Could have got a Lush Portico to try and, you know, scry to the top, but, you know, in this situation, I think we're just trying to win with our board state and not give them good stuff to use their counter spells on. Okay, so they block the Primeval Titan, unsurprisingly. Now we can just transform the Westvale Abbey here, deny them the 7 life, and then in blue-black, I don't think they've really got any way to deal with the Ormondal here because it has Indestructible, right? They would need Shieldred's Edict, and we can just sack the Primeval Titan, or we can even fire up the Lair of the Hydra in response. Oh, wait. Oh my god. Okay, that's a huge misplay. Okay, I did not realize that you could steal Ormondal with Archmage's Charm. Okay, noted. I'll remember that one in future. That's never come up so far. Okay, that's a big problem. Okay, yeah. I guess, yeah, that does make sense, but yeah, because it has technically 0 CMC, right? So Archmage's Charm can steal it. Yeah, okay. Right, well, I'll remember that and not do that one in future. That, I mean, to be fair, that might potentially lose us the game here because that's going to gain them a ton of life back. It's going to make it really difficult for them to, for us to race them now. Yikes. Okay, that's kind of rough. I mean, having said that, we still have a game plan here, somewhat. If they kind of don't have that much else going on, if they just have counters, like if they just have removal spells, we can try and bait out counter spells on the natural order and then try and win with the Crater Hoof, right? Because if they just have counter spell 2 lands or like, you know, fatal pushes or stuff in hand, then hopefully we can bait out, because from their point of view, right, this natural order represents Crater Hoof, right? They need to counter this if we had Crater Hoof in the deck. We've only got 5 cards in the graveyard, which is very important here, right? They counter the natural order, we go down to 6. They need to get, for these Drowning Locks for that Drowning Lock to work as a counter spell, they would need to get 2 more of our cards in the graveyard. So even if they have a kill spell for the Titan here, like a Shieldred's Edict, that's not enough to get our graveyard up to 8. Wow, they Drowning Lock. Okay, so that's a very good sign. I feel if they had a counter spell, they would snap it off here. So we might still win, even though we made an, you know, absolutely terrible play with the Westvale Abbey, because I didn't realize you could steal Ormondale with the Archmage's Charm. Okay, they crack a fetch. They can't get Mystic Sanctuary, so that's not going to help them if they have like a Brainstorm. Oh wow, they get the Sanctuary anyway. But I feel like, yeah, if they had a counter spell, they would have used it already, I'm sure. So we might be able to steal this one. That would be huge. Yeah, they have another Drowning Lock. Okay. I have 7 cards in the graveyard. So we won this one on margins. I mean, to be fair, we made it a lot more difficult for ourselves because of the Ormondale play. But, you know, this is why we got Crater Hoof in the deck. So managed to win even through an Omniscience when we didn't have like a Titan of Industry or an Archdruid's Charm, which is sick. I mean, I guess that's the drawback of them being on the more controlling version. Although having said that, I think the controlling version is probably better against us, but especially post Sideboard where we have Rex Sage. So here, definitely going to bring in the full 4 copies of Rex Sage, and then Sylvan Scrying not as important, I don't think. You know, we've already got Archdruid's Charm that does a similar thing. We're not really going to be using the Sylvan Scrying to fetch a Besaiger against them because they're not a Blood Moon deck. So definitely want to have the 4 Rex Sage, and then post Sideboard we do have a good amount of counterplay, right? Because if they show and tell, well, I like I said, they are in a more controlling version, which makes things more difficult. But if they just jam the turn 3 show and tell, we have, you know, 4 Rex Sage, 1 Titan of Industry that just blows up the Omniscience immediately, and then we can also Archdruid's Charm in response, tutor up the Titan of Industry, blow up the Omniscience. Now, it is a bit more annoying if they do have the Atraxa, because, especially if we have Rex Sage, they put an Atraxa in, we put a Rex Sage in. Not the best, but, you know, as we saw last game, we can beat Atraxa, So this hand is definitely missing a few pieces. We do have Once Upon a Time to dig for them, but having Natural Order Titan and Rex Sage is the big one here. You know, I feel happy keeping this hand because of Rex Sage. You know, we have good counterplay to turn 3 show and tell here, which is pretty big. So definitely I was looking for a land here anyway, because we want to go for turn 1 Grazer and then hopefully accelerate for a turn 3 Natural Order here would be the play I'm looking for, hopefully. So we're going to go for Lair of the Hydra. You know, definitely seems like the best option here. Then we can go Colony Garden into play, which gives us 2 bodies in play. And we did see they're running with a decent amount of interaction. So even if they have like a Bowmasters or a Fatal Push here, they need 2 Fatal Pushes to cut us off it, basically. Okay, they might have it. There's one. Okay. Don't have the second Fatal Push. I'm going to lead on Once Upon a Time here just in case we find a tap land that we want to play. Like Sunken Citadel. Just debating whether I want to go for Citadel or another fetch land here. I think I'm going to go for the Citadel. Now, the one downside of this play is if they're potentially boarding into Ashiok against us, then we can't crack the fetch here. But, you know, I'm not sure they are running that. Okay, they got Thoughtseize, so... Wow, they snap off taking the Titan. So that must mean they've got a counterspell, right? Or they would definitely take the natural order here. So I definitely don't just want to jam the natural order into a counterspell here. We can kind of just slow roll them a little bit here because if they do have Show and Tell Omniscience, we have the answer in hand immediately. They're obviously holding up counterspells, and I don't want to just waste it. And, like, you know, we're not too far away from just naturally getting fielded dead online anyway. With these fetch lands, we've also got good utility lands here, right? We can grab the Gate to Manabon and the Lush Portico, and they are kind of stuck on mana here a little bit as well. Okay, they do push. They do push the plant token, but we still have Lair of the Hydra that we can fire up in order to sack to the natural order. Oh wow, now we drew Titan of Industry as well. That's huge. So grab Gate to Manabon there just because it gives us a good play to do this turn. I don't want to be attacking with the Lair of the Hydra because them killing it with Fatal Push cuts us off, you know, Field of the Dead. Wow, they go for Unmoored Ego. Interesting. So I presume, well, they take Primeval Titan here potentially, but them getting stuck on lands here is absolutely huge for us because now they're completely tapped out. Natural Order is still live because we got Crater Hoof in the deck, so gonna seek first here, see what we hit. Okay, another Natural Order, not the best. Then we can crack the Wooded Foothills, get the Lush Portico, try and, you know, scry for the next turn. Oh wow, that sucks because now now the Natural Orders basically do nothing, right? I was hoping to use this Natural Order in order to find a Crater Hoof. Now they're basically completely dead. And now, you know, even though Titan of Industry is the best answer for Show and Tell, we still have the Rex Sage in hand, so if they do go Show and Tell into Omniscience, we can just kill it straight away with the Rex Sage. And if they go Atraxa, we've got the Crater Hoof just to attack with the following turn, so I feel pretty good about this spot. So we could obviously jam the Crater Hoof here, force them to have a counter spell, which I think I'm happy to do, right? Because then even if they have a counter spell, we're attacking for a huge amount this turn, and then got lethal in a number of ways next turn. Okay, they Gust. I'm very happy to just top that and then go again next turn. But yeah, just applying a ton of pressure here. So I think we should be good here, right? I don't think there's anything they can do. Maybe if they go land, Thoughtseize, Show and Tell into Omniscience. But yeah, opponent just scoops it up. So we got there. Nice. Okay, so we're on the play here. And nothing before turn 3. Don't have any other acceleration, so I'm kind of tempted to mull this, but we also have a turn 4 Titan here, right? We can use Archdruid's Charm to get Colony Garden, which then sets up for either Natural Order or Primeval Titan on turn 4. And I think turn 4 Titan on the play, especially when we have Archmage's Charm, Order, and Primeval Titan, I think this hand is, you know, reasonably resilient to discard spells. I think I'm going to keep this. If I was on the draw, then, you know, maybe think about putting it back a little bit more. Drawing Colony Garden here is a little bit awkward because I think that was what I would tutor off the Archdruid's Charm. And obviously the opponent could have a Fatal Push here, but even if they do, we can still Archdruid's Charm for another land and then just go Castle Garenbrig into Primeval Titans. So I still think this hand's pretty reasonable. How against Dimir, so this could be Show and Tell. So again, I'm very happy to have the Archdruid's Charm here. So, okay, Sunken Citadel's an interesting top deck here. So generally, you want to play the Citadel here first, so then you can go for Garenbrig next turn. But I think against a potential Show and Tell deck, we have to just play an untapped green source here and just go, you know, have Archdruid's Charm available. Because if the opponent goes Show and Tell here, we really want to have this Archdruid's Charm up, because then we can shoot to the Titan of Industry. If they go for Omniscience, we can just put the Titan of Industry in straight away and just blow up the Omniscience. If they put an Attraction in play, we have a blocker with a shield counter. Wow, okay, they do have the Show and Tell. Very happy we have the Archdruid's Charm here. So now we just cheat for the Titan of Industry. And, you know, hopefully they've got Omniscience here out of the two. I think that's more of the blowout for us. Okay, they do. So hopefully they don't have a bunch of instant speed stuff or, you know, just like a bunch of dig through times. Wow, they don't have anything at instant speed. Okay, that's a huge blowout. And now I think we have lethal here, right? We can just Natural Order for Crater Hoof. Oh wow, they just scoop it up anyway. Okay, so you know that's a very very like broken exchange from our point of view. If they don't have any instant speed spells, that's just such a blowout. So here, bringing in the 4 Rex Sages and then cut the Sylvan Scryings, which aren't as important as the Once Upon a Times in this matchup. You know, typically I'll either trim Once Upon a Time or Sylvan Scrying, depending on the matchup. And this is definitely a matchup where Sylvan Scrying doesn't have as much utility. You know, mainly we want to keep Scrying in mainly against Blood Moon decks so that we can cheater up Boseiju. So this hand, obviously, we don't have Rex Sage, Titan of Industry, or Archdruid's Charm, which is our main counteract, ways to counteract Show and Tell. But, you know, with a turn 3 Titan here, I don't think we can really afford to mulligan. You know, they're not always going to have the turn 3 Show and Tell, and we have 2 draw steps to find one of those anyway. So, you know, I don't think we can ship back good proactive hands just to try and find one of those 3 cards. And we can also use this Wooded Foothills to fetch a Portico in order to try and find one of those as well. You know, try and increase our chances of drawing a Rex Sage, a Titan of Industry, or an Archdruid's Charm off the top. So it looks like opponent's considering something here. Maybe they're on a counterspell build. Although they could obviously... Okay, they do counterspell the Grazer, which is kind of a surprise. So does that mean they've just got the Show and Tell immediately? That would be kind of rough, because then we've only got Grazer to put in play. But if they've just got Atraxa... Wow, they do have the natural turn 3 Show and Tell again. Hopefully they don't have Omniscience. So I'll put a Grazer in play here. It does accelerate us. Okay, they do have the Omniscience, which is kind of rough. So I just got to hope they brick here. You know, I have faced a few builds that are just more of the control version. Okay, they got Fey of Wishes, so almost definitely going to be losing here. But I'm interested to see just what their win condition is, to see if, you know, whether that changes how I approach the game going into game 3. Okay, so they shared summons, get a Traxer and Fey of Wishes. I'm just going to crack a fetch now so that we don't have to keep pressing resolve. Go for the Lush Portico. I mean, there's no way that they whiff here, but I'll get the Portico anyway, right? And then keep a land just in case they mess up sequencing somehow. Okay, we see Emrakul the Promise, and I'm happy to just scoop it up now. So that's a little bit unfortunate, you know. That is going to happen sometimes, and maybe, you know, I haven't played this matchup too many times. Maybe you're supposed to just hard mulligan for one of your 3 pieces of counteraction, but I feel like that's risky because a lot of these builds do run Thoughtseize as well. So this hand is interesting. We do have turn 4 Natural Order. I'm gonna try this out, right? Because, like I said, I don't really want to be mulliganing too much against a deck that is likely running Thoughtseize and Counterspell, but. And we do have a lot of draws to counteract. Oh, wow. I was going to say we have a lot of draws to counteract the Show and Tell. Speaking of which, just drew Titan of Industry off the top. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I'll have to play more games to decide whether we should be mulliganing more aggressively to those sorts of hate cards in this matchup. But, you know, I assume they're going to have discard spells, so I don't really want to rely on them too much. So the main reason I played the Snow-Covered Forest over the Field of Dead last turn was in case we drew an Archdruid's Charm off the top. You know, this would be the key turn where we would want access to it. Having said that, we've already got the Titan of Industry in hand, so it doesn't really make too much of a difference. But if you're familiar with the old versions of Titan, you always want to be wary of playing colorless lands in the early game if you can avoid it, because of potential Archdruid's Charms top decks, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's hard to say whether we should be mulliganing aggressively here, because we have 9 outs to Show and Tell, like I said, or to Show and Tell into Omniscience. Wow, they have the natural turn 3 Show and Tell in all 3 games. But we have the Titan of Industry this time, so we can blow it up. See how many instant speed spells they've got here. Okay, it looks like they've got something here. But I don't really think there's a good way for them to win at instant speed. Okay, they draw 2 off the Archmage's Charm. And they got Impulse as well. Dig Through Time is the card that I'm worried about them casting here, because that just provides them so much value. Okay, 2 Impulses. That does give them a lot of looks. Okay, another Bowmasters. That's going to be kind of rough if they hit the Wow, they go after the Titan of Industry. That must be a misclick, right? Surely they should go after the plant token. I mean, we should have lethal here again, right? We can just go for Crater Hoof and just go for the win here. So, I mean, they probably did misclick there. I don't know if we would have had lethal if they'd taken out the plant token, but I still feel like we'd be in a good position, right? They'd have to rebuild and find Show and Tell Omniscience. Yeah, okay, opponent just keeps it up. So we got there again. Nice. Okay, so we're going second here. And weird hand. So what we're looking for Once Upon a Time here, if we get a turn 1 Accelerant, we don't even have the third land to really take advantage of that. If we get a third land off Once Upon a Time, we're not doing anything until turn 3, which on the draw just isn't good enough. So I think I've got to ship this one back. Okay, this one looks a lot better. We got turn 1 Acceleration, we got Charm and Primeval Titan here. So just trying to think what I would put back here, though. I think I'm kind of etching towards Charm because we don't have Sunken Citadel, so we're looking for a turn 4 Primeval Titan here, which we would obviously need 5 lands for. Now, Charm is going to be important against, I was going to say Show and Tell, which it looks like what we're up against, if I had to guess. You know, I don't think any Phoenix decks are running Sleight of Hand, but we do have access to Boseiju here, which is pretty big. So I'm going to lead on Snow-Covered Forest into Kami, probably into Field of the Dead. This does cut us off a potential Archdruid's Charm top deck, but like I said, we do have access to the Boseiju here if they do go Show and Tell into Omniscience. Okay, another Castle Gambrig's a bit annoying. I mean, we do want to keep hitting land drops though here, right? Our game plan is basically just go for Primeval Titan on turn 4 of the Castle Gambrig, and I have to imagine Sleight of Hand is Show and Tell, right? I don't think, unless it's just like a budget version of Phoenix, in which case I want to hold Boseiju up. Obviously, if they go Show and Tell into... Okay, Impulse. Almost certain they're on Show and Tell then. But yeah, we don't want to... Like, if they go Show and Tell into Attract, so that's a little bit more difficult, but we've still got Primeval Titan that we can use to get Westvale Abbey, and we can still try and hold on to the Boseiju to answer Omniscience when they do put it into play. Plus, we get Primeval Titan into play off the Show and Tell, so... Going to go into full control here, and then we can... Okay, they do have Omniscience, so now we can Boseiju the Omniscience in response to the Primeval Titan trigger, which doesn't give them an opportunity to cast anything at sorcery speed off the Omniscience, which is pretty big. So hopefully they don't have too many instants here. Okay, they have an Impulse immediately. Hopefully they don't chain too much together. Wow, they just scoop it up. Okay, we got there, nice. So then post Sideboard, we get the Rex Sages in, cut the Sylvan Scryings and just ship it back. So this matchup has felt pretty good. I do think the Sideboard plan has felt really nice here. Having said that, Show and Tell has only been out for a couple days, so I'm sure the lists that most people are playing aren't too refined right now. And there are definitely ways that the Show and Tell deck could potentially adapt to the sort of game plan that I'm using. You know, they could... Well, I've been playing Show and Tell myself, and I've encountered stuff like Leyline Binding, Titan of Industry being a problem, so you could potentially run more discard spells to try and get rid of it. You could run Stifle effects like Stifle itself or Tishana's Tidebinder. There are other cards like Leyline of Anticipation and stuff like that allow you to combo off at instant speed. So if the Show and Tell decks adapt to make the Reclamation Sage plan, or Boseiju like we saw there, not as effective, then I'm not as high on this deck. You know, one of the main reasons why I'm still happy to be playing this right now is because I feel like I've got a decent game plan against the Show and Tell decks. But having said that, they do need to have those cards alongside Show and Tell and Omniscience, which isn't always going to happen. So this hand obviously is a bit of a sketchy keep, but we have Once Upon a Time and now 2 Rex Sages as well. Yeah, having said that, this hand is quite a sketchy keep, especially if they do have Show and Tell into Omniscience, but, you know, Once Upon a Time can find us a lot of good stuff. We have Sunken Citadel, Castle Gambrig, so had we found a Titan off the Once Upon a Time, that's a turn 4 Titan, which is pretty reasonable anyway. We found a Kami as well, which does provide us with acceleration, so definitely keeping this hand off the back of Rex Sage, but it looks like it might work out, right? We've got some acceleration, we've got the Rex Sages, we've got a lot of good top decks. Even if they have a Thoughtseize here, you know, they take one Rex Sage, we still have the other one. So, and that's the other thing as well, with 9 of these sorts of effects, Archdruid's Charm, Titan of Industry, Rex Sage, the discard spell plan isn't even that effective against us because, you know, there's a good chance that we draw this stuff in multiples. So I still like the game plan. Even if they do adapt, I still feel like Titan could still have a reasonable shot. And the nice thing is about these sorts of cards is you don't have to worry about tapping out because obviously the show and tell puts your card into play for you. So see if they've got the show and tell here. They've already used an assemble the team. Okay, a second assemble the team. So very happy to see a slow start from the opponent here. So I have to assume they've probably got both pieces now. Going to attack with the Kami first regardless, and then we can just natural order for Primeval Titan and then really start applying pressure here. You know, kind of force them to use their combo straight away, and we hopefully have the answer. Definitely going to be fetching a Westvale Abbey here, just in case they do have a Traxxas. So we get Field of the Dead. Oh, wait, I've been the Westvale Abbey, okay. So that's a little bit annoying. If they do have a Traxxas, it's going to be slightly harder to beat now. Having said that, we still do have ways to beat it, right? We've still got the Crater Hoof, which should be good, I think, right? Even if they get a few hits in with the Atraxa. Okay, there's the show and tell, so go for a Rex Sage, and they have Omniscience, okay, so we get to take out the Omniscience straight away here. See how many instant speed spells they got. Wow, they just scoop it up again, nice. Okay, so we're going second here. Okay, so for this hand to be good, we really need to find an accelerant off this Once Upon a Time, especially on the draw. But if we do, the hand's pretty sick. I'm going to risk it. Because, I mean, even without an acceleration, well, even without an accelerant, we can still use Once Upon a Time to go grab a Castle Garenbrig, and then we've got a turn 4 Titan. So even if we do whiff off Once Upon a Time, this hand is still not awful. Okay, Crater Hoof's not the best draw. Okay, we found the Grazer 6. So now we can go Snow-Covered Forest into Grazer, get Sunken Citadel. Maybe I'm supposed to lead on the Foothills, but Overgrown Tomb into Delighted Halfling. Well, just to play around Ashiok Dream Render, but I don't think Overgrown Tomb into Delighted Halfling really signifies that they're likely to have Ashiok. Okay, they force these away the Archdruid's Charm, which is a bit annoying. Wow, they kept a one-lander. I mean, I'm pretty happy to see that because they did slow us down quite a bit. Archdruid's Charm was definitely the card we were looking to bridge the mid-game, get to the Primeval Titan. Okay, they found the second Delighted Halfling, or maybe they had that in hand anyway. Okay, Once Upon a Time, definitely going to lead on that in case we find a tap land that we want to play here. Interesting. So it's between Kami and the Bajuka Bog here, I think. We don't want to use Sunken Citadel because we've already got one in play. I think I'm just going to go for the Kami here. Then we can play the Wooded Foothills. We can go for Kami and then put a Boseiju into play, and then we can use this Wooded Foothills to find the Surveil land to try and find our 6th land, because unfortunately we didn't find a Castle Garenbrig that we were hoping to get off the Archdruid's Charm. Okay, there's an Oko. So probably against Sultai if I had to guess, but there's still a chance we're against 4-color and we just haven't seen any off-color lands yet. Natural Order. I think we've got to keep that, right? That's just another way we can go for Primeval Titan here. So, going to sack the Grazer here. Kami is obviously still weak to Walkish Bowmasters, but I want to get in for a single point of damage. And with Crater Hoof in hand, I think I value more getting, more power into play. Having said that, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure whether it's best to keep the Kami or the Grazer because of Crater Hoof. Because, like I said, if they do Bowmasters the Kami here, that's one fewer creature for the Crater Hoof here. But I think it's very small margins. I don't think that'll really end up mattering. Wow, okay. Opponent kept a one-lander and ended up getting punished. Or maybe they're just too far behind at that point. They could still, elk the Primeval Titan there, but damage is probably already done. So, definitely going to be bringing the Get Losts here because I think they're a deck that, if they're not main decking Ashiok, they're probably going to be sideboarding it in against us, I have to imagine. And so, Get Lost is definitely the best tool against these Sultai decks. We don't have to worry about Blood Moon, so Rex Sage doesn't really do too much. I mean, again, they could potentially be on Show and Tell because I've seen some builds that are running, some Sultai builds that are running Show and Tell, but, I think that's more of an unusual thing from my experience. So this hand Again, we need some help off these Once Upon a Times, but if we can find an accelerant, we've actually got a pretty solid start. You know, we've already got Sunken Citadel, so if we can find the Garenbrig, we're good. Okay, we found the Grazer. And now we can go for Archdruid's Charm to find Castle Garenbrig, or to find Titan, depending on what we draw. If we do go for the Garenbrig, then we can just, you know, curve out pretty nicely into Titan of Industry, which is pretty decent. Okay, so they brainstorm. Happy to see no Oko here, or obviously Ashiok would also be pretty good against our hand right now, right? Shuts off the Archdruid's Charm, shuts off the Once Upon a Time. Oh, no, it doesn't shut off the Once Upon a Time, sorry. Wow, they main phase the Bowmasters. I'm kind of surprised to see that. Okay, we draw the Colney Garden. So, interesting whether I want to go for Colney Garden, Once Upon a Time, or Archdruid's Charm. This is a bit risky here because this is weaker to Ashiok quite a bit. In fact, okay, they do go for Natural Order. Yeah, maybe thinking about it, this line is very greedy. The main reason I wanted to do this is because I want to try and save Archdruid's Charm to fetch a Primeval Titan. But thinking about it, this was probably a very greedy line. I think what I should have done here is just gone untap land, hold open Archdruid's Charm, and then potentially go for Garenbrig and just try and go for Titan of Industry. But I do feel like Primeval Titan is the way that we're going to win this matchup. Okay, we find a Titan off the top. I think I'm going to go for that, and then we can use the Archdruid's Charm for one of the other modes, potentially. Yeah, I think I did probably misplay this slightly. Okay, Natural Order off the top. Definitely going to go for that now while they don't have an Ashiok in play. That does mean that we can't use the Natural Order to find a Crater Hoof, but we know that they're probably going to be going for Ashiok this next turn. We know they've got a Thoughtseize as well, so definitely want to use the Natural Order now while we've got the opportunity. And then we've got the Westfall Abbey in hand, so that would be the card that I would look to put into play here. So just trying to think what the next best option is here. So we've got Field of Dead, obviously, that we want to put into play. We could go for a Fetch Land, we could go for a Portico, we could go for a Lair of the Hydra. Bajuka Bog is not particularly good against their board state. If they had the double Halflings, then maybe that would be a consideration. So I think it's between Lair of the Hydra, Portico, and a Fetch Land. We could also go for Garenbrig, actually. Garenbrig's not that bad here, especially when we've got, this Titan of Industry in hand. But I think I'm just going to go for the Portico here. Just try and smooth our draws out. Because I imagine the opponent's next turn is going to be Thoughtseize into Ashiok here. So I'm definitely going to soak up some damage with this Grazer. We don't have to worry about keeping bodies in play for Natural Order because they're almost certainly going to be casting the Ashiok here. And to be honest, this Thoughtseize is going to be tricky for the opponent because they can't hit the Westvale Abbey. Interestingly, lead on the Ashiok. I guess it doesn't really make a difference what order they do this in, but all three of these cards are going to be problematic for the opponent. I mean, Primeval Titan less so because we've got they've got Ashiok in play. I think the card I don't want them to take here is the Archdruid's Charm, because we can use the Archdruid's Charm to kill the Atraxa and then just attack down the Ashiok. Okay, they take the Titan of Industry, which I'm actually pretty happy about here. So now we can go for the Westvale Abbey. I definitely want to get this one in place so that we can potentially transform it. But I think I'm just going to use the Archdruid's Charm here to take out the Atraxa here and then just attack down the Ashiok, because it makes the Primeval Titan a 7/7. So we're definitely guaranteed to kill the Ashiok. Obviously, we don't get the lands here, but this is still a pretty big blowout for the opponent. Right, they lose the Ashiok and the Atraxa. I'm also going to main phase this Once Upon a Time just in case we find something we want to cast here. Like, actually, I don't even know what we would want to cast here, because even if we find a Kami or a Grazer like we did, we know we're not going to cast that without another land in hand. So maybe I'm supposed to wait on the Once Upon a Time there. Probably am, actually, because there's nothing else that we can really cast off it. Wow, okay, nice. Yeah, we got there. I mean, to be fair, that Archdruid's Charm was a big blowout for the opponent. Okay, so we're going first here. And, I mean, this hand is a very fast start. Obviously, we need help off the top, but I think I'm going to keep this, right? On the play, we have so many good top decks. We've got Archdruid's Charm, Natural Order, Primeval Titan, so I think I'm happy to keep this one. And we also got fetch lands that can help smooth the top of our deck. I think the Surveil land is actually a much bigger deal than I initially thought in this list, because you can keep hands like this with fetch lands and just crack it to try and scry, or I guess Surveil towards a Natural Order, a Primeval Titan, etc. So Okay, Thoughtseizes, so not the end of the world losing that. Okay, Natural Order off the top is sick. Just got to hope the opponent doesn't kill the Grazer here. So swamping to Thoughtseizes with Gigantha, I have to imagine this is Rakdos or Jund here. So definitely do need to be cognizant of Blood Moon. So I'm kind of tempted to fetch a second basic off the Foothills, but we'll have to see what they do for turn here. If they kill the Grazer, I think I might have to just scry here, try and find more action. Or Surveil, I guess. Okay, so against Jund. And they do bolt the Grazer. Good play from the opponent there. Cuts us off Natural Order. So cracking the Foothills here. Again, there's an argument to go for another basic here, but I think with not much gas in a Natural Order, I'm going to use the Portico here to Surveil. Happy we got rid of that. Wow, okay, scrying is a great draw here, because now we can go for Colony Garden, and then we can play the Temple Garden tapped here, and then next time we can go Colony Garden into Natural Order, and there's no way that they can stop that if they don't have a discard spell, because it doesn't give the opponent an opportunity to use instant speed removal. Okay, no Blood Moon is huge. So now we can go Colony Garden. Opponent doesn't get an opportunity to kill it. And then we can just Natural Order for Primeval Titan here. And I have to imagine that's going to be lights out against Jund, right? I think I am going to now get the second basic, though. Because having the second basic then means that any future Natural Order top decks can get Titan of Industry. And then obviously, Titan of Industry is just a blowout against Blood Moon. We can take out the Blood Moon, then we got a huge creature that's really difficult for Jund to deal with. Okay, they do have the Edict, so they take out the Titan, but we should still be in a good position here, right? We can fetch a Field of the Dead and just a regular basic, and then we get Field of the Dead online. We've also got Archdruid's Charm here that we can ideally probably use to try and get a Crater Hoof to attack for lethal, because the opponent's already down to 14 just off their lands and Thoughtseize and stuff like that. And then grabbing the basic there was kind of an easy decision because we've already got Westvale Abbey in hand, right? I think Westvale Abbey is always a card I'm considering getting off that first Titan trigger just because it's an alternate threat, even if the Titan gets taken out. But, I mean, even if I didn't have the Westvale Abbey in hand, I still think I would have got the basic there just because I have to imagine we're against the Blood Moon deck. Okay, Minsk and Boo is a bit of a concern here, not going to lie. So I assume a plus and then pass. Attacking would just allow us to cleanly kill the Minsk and Boo here. Interesting spot. So we've got quite a few choices here. I'm definitely going to be playing the Westvale Abbey. And then I'm kind of tempted to go Archdruid's Charm to fetch Crater Hoof, but hold on, let me just count the mana here, because we don't have a Castle Garenbrig, right? I'm just trying to think whether we can potentially transform Westvale Abbey as well, right? We could go Archdruid's Charm, get a Field of the Dead, get 2 triggers, but then we don't have enough mana to do Charm plus the Westvale Abbey. So interesting spot here. We could grab Crater Hoof. Like I said, we could try and flip the Westvale Abbey as well. Okay, Jarsel. So that probably shuts off the Crater Hoof line, right? Because presumably they use this Jarsel to Thoughtseize us from their graveyards. Okay, they're -2ing the Minsk. Whether they go face, or maybe they go Kami here to try and cut us off Natural Order. Okay, they do go after the Kami. So that also then is one less creature for Westvale Abbey as well. Yeah, if we had one more mana here, we could have gone Archdruid's Charm, get another Field of the Dead, and then transform the Westvale Abbey here. Which probably, I doubt they're going to have... I mean, I guess we've seen Shieldred's Edict, right? Okay, so they Fatal Push one of our tokens here. Interesting spot, because now we could potentially use Archdruid's Charm to try and fight the Jarsel. Okay, they got something else here. Okay, they Thoughtseize us, so now they're going to presumably use the Fatal Push from the graveyard to take out another token here. So And we can kill the Minsk and Boo. So I'm kind of tempted to just use the fight mode on Charm here, right? We can buff one of our tokens and take out the Jar Soul, which then stops them using the Fatal Push. The other option there was obviously get another Field of the Dead. Oh well, we drew another Titan off the top. I mean, even without that, I still feel like we're in a good spot, right? Because we can take out the Minsk. Any other land would have got us another token, and then we're getting close to transforming the Westvale Abbey. So obviously that was a sick top deck, but I still feel like we're in a pretty good spot even without that there. You know, cleanly kill the Minsk, and then we're getting towards transforming the Westvale Abbey. So here, you know, against Jund, I think Rex Sage is probably more important than Get Lost. You know, Get Lost is going to be important if they're running Ashiok. So if we see Ashiok, or we're concerned they're running a high number of Ashiok, then I think I prefer Get Lost there. But, you know, the issue with Get Lost as an answer to Blood Moon is it incentivizes you to fetch white sources rather than basics, which then means that you basically have to hold open 2 mana, including your white land, for the rest of the game, or they can just resolve Blood Moon and you can't really do anything about it. Whereas running Rex Sage, we can prioritize getting basics, which is really important. It means we can then tap out and still potentially deal with the Blood Moon with a follow-up play. But again, if this does go to a game 3 and we see Ashiok, or we're worried they're running Ashiok in high numbers, then definitely see an argument for bringing in some Get Lost instead. And I also like keeping in the Sylvan Scrying because, again, Blood Moon is the main concern in this matchup. So, you know, we want to have access to... what am I saying? Yeah, we want to have access to Boseiju more consistently as well. So this is giving a very big read to the opponent that we have Natural Order here, but, you know, I still think it's just the best play that we have access to, because if they do go for Blood Moon here, we've got 2 basics already. We can Natural Order for Titan of Industry. Okay, they do bolt the plant token, which is a little bit annoying, but, you know, I think that's still fine. Okay, now we've drawn another land, which is pretty big. So now we can go for the Kami. Now we have another creature in play for Natural Order. And even if they take out the Kami here, we can grab the Surveil land to try and find our 6th land for the Titan, just to hardcast it anyway. So basically forcing the opponent to have a lot of removal here. But having said that, they are missing land drops, so their hand is obviously just all gas here. So I think we're just going to be grabbing the Surveil land here to try and find the 6th land. So yeah, the Surveil lands have really, really impressed me in basically every deck that I've played in so far. Okay, they do have the Shaman, so that does unlock their mana a little bit here, but basically just going to use this Surveil land to try and find any untapped land here. Okay, perfect. Gambrig's a really nice one. So now we can go Primeval Titan, and now we can go, since we've had to wait for the 6th land, we can just grab 2 Field of the Deads here, which is pretty big, right? Get 4 tokens immediately. And then even if they have a Blood Moon here, we can just go Natural Order the Primeval Titan into Titan of Industry. So I feel pretty good about this spot. Obviously the opponent missing land drops is a little bit rough for them, but they did disrupt our Natural Order a number of times, but, you know, we're able to play through it pretty nicely. So I'm trying to think what the best sequence for the opponent here would even be. I think it's just too late for them, yeah. Missing land drops is just too brutal. Wow, Clothis. I mean, I can understand why you'd want that in some matchups, but I don't know why you would keep Clothis in against our deck. Okay, so they Deathrite Shaman. You can put Ragavan in play, maybe. Okay, if they don't have a land, we just win here, right? We can just Natural Order the Titan for a Crater Hoof. So obviously, opponent missing land drops there was a little bit rough, but I still think even if they had hit lands, they would have struggled to play through this, because we had 2 basics and Natural Order for most of the game, so we would have had an out to Blood Moon, which is their main, you know, way they can win this matchup. So yeah, we got there, nice.